High Admiral Zixrax of the Galactic Confederation stood motionless before the holographic display, his iridescent scales shifting colors with barely contained excitement. After centuries of exploration, his fleet had finally discovered what appeared to be a promising young civilization in an unremarkable spiral arm of the galaxy. "Preliminary scans complete, Admiral," announced Science Officer Venna, her tentacles dancing across the bioorganic interface. "The third planet shows signs of early space exploration capabilities. Primitive satellites in orbit, basic space stations, and curious energy signatures we can't quite identify." The massive flagship of the Confederation fleet hung in the darkness of space, just beyond the orbit of the system's gas giant. Earth, as the inhabitants called it, shimmered like a blue jewel in the distance. "Elaborate on these energy signatures," Zixrax commanded, his inner eyelids narrowing. Venna's tentacles writhed in frustration. "They're inconsistent, Admiral. One moment our sensors detect nothing beyond their visible technology level, but then we catch glimpses of something far more sophisticated. It's as if—" She paused, searching for the right words, "as if we're seeing echoes of something hidden." Hidden. Zixrax's scales shifted to a deep purple of intrigue. By whom? Before Venna could respond, the ship's emergency protocols activated. Red warning glyphs materialized throughout the bridge as the defensive systems automatically engage. Multiple objects materializing. The tactical officer shouted, They're everywhere." Zixrax watched in astonishment as hundreds of structures shimmered into existence around Earth. Space stations, defense platforms, and shipyards that dwarfed anything the Confederation had ever built appeared as if they had always been there, hidden behind some impossible veil. "Incoming transmission," the communications officer announced, their voice trembling. A figure appeared on the main view screen. A human, looking remarkably calm for a member of what was supposed to be a developing civilization. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. You've entered restricted space, Confederation vessel. Your stealth systems are impressive, but we detected you the moment you entered the system." Zixrax felt his scales involuntarily shift to the white of shock. Their stealth technology was the most advanced in known space. It should have been impossible for a primitive civilization to detect them. I am High Admiral Zixrax of the Galactic Confederation. We came seeking peaceful contact with your developing world." Admiral Chen's lips curved into what Zixrax's xenological training identified as a smile, though there was something ancient and knowing in her eyes. "Developing. An interesting assumption, Admiral, though I suppose that was the point of our masquerade." As if to emphasize her words, massive vessels began emerging from what had appeared to be empty space around Earth. Their design was unlike anything in the Confederation database, organic yet mechanical, displaying technology that shouldn't have been possible. "But our records," Zixrax stammered. "Your first radio transmissions were less than 2 centuries ago. Your visible technology is exactly what we wanted you to see," Chen finished. "Humanity learned long ago that appearing harmless is often more advantageous than displaying power. It lets us observe, learn, and most importantly, determine the true intentions of those we meet." The implications hit Zixrax like a gravitational wave. Every scan they had conducted, every observation they had made, it had all been permitted, perhaps even guided, by the humans. They weren't discovering a young civilization. They were being tested by one that might be older than the Confederation itself. "How long?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "How long have your people been among the stars?" Chen's expression grew serious. "Long enough to watch empires rise and fall. Long enough to learn that advertising our capabilities usually leads to unnecessary conflict. Long enough to perfect the art of hiding in plain sight." She paused, studying the alien admiral. "The question now, Admiral Zixrax, is what do you intend to do with this knowledge?" Zixrax looked at the display showing the true extent of Earth's power, then back at the human admiral. In that moment, he understood that this wasn't just a first contact situation. It was a revelation that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of its own history. Perhaps, he said carefully, we should begin our conversation again. Not as advanced civilization and developing world, but as equals. Though I suspect we have far more to learn from you than you from us. Chen's smile returned, warmer this time. A wise choice, Admiral. And you might be surprised. In our experience, there's always something new to learn, even for those who have watched the stars for millennia. As the transmission ended, Zixrax gazed at the enormous structures surrounding Earth, now visible in their full glory. He couldn't help but wonder how many other civilizations had made the same mistake his people nearly had, underestimating humanity based on what they wanted others to see, never realizing they were dealing with one of the most ancient and advanced species in the galaxy. The real first contact, he realized, was only beginning. The observation deck of Earth's orbital command center provided a view that shattered everything Zixrax thought he knew about human civilization. What had appeared to be primitive satellites and basic space stations now revealed their true nature. Quantum computational arrays disguised as weather monitors, antimatter production facilities masked as communication relays, and defense systems that made the Confederation's best technology look primitive in comparison. Admiral Chen stood beside him, her reflection overlaying the spectacular view of Earth below. Your civilization's response to finding us has been unique, Admiral Zixrax. Most either retreat in fear or attempt to claim our technology by force. Few choose diplomatic engagement after learning the truth. Perhaps because we've learned enough about deception to recognize its necessity. Zixrax replied, his scales shifting to thoughtful blue. Though I admit, the scale of your masquerade is unprecedented. A holographic display materialized between them, showing a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Countless points of light began to illuminate, forming patterns that made Zixrax's inner eyelids widen in shock. These are human outposts, Chen explained. Monitoring stations, research facilities, and defensive installations we've maintained for millennia. Some hidden like Earth, others abandoned but still functioning, watching and waiting. The ancient ruins, Zixrax whispered, his scales paling. The mysterious artifacts we found throughout the galaxy. They're yours. Some of them, Chen nodded. Others belong to civilizations far older than humanity. We learned from them, built upon their foundation, and eventually took up their mantle when they passed into history. Before Zixrax could respond, a new figure entered the observation deck, an elderly human male who moved with surprising grace despite his apparent age. Admiral Chen, he spoke, his voice carrying weight of centuries. The Council has reached a decision. Admiral Zixrax, allow me to introduce Director Marcus Reynolds of the Earth Historical Preservation Division, Chen said. He's been advocating for increased openness with select civilizations. Reynolds approached the window, his reflection seeming to ripple oddly in the transparent material that Zixrax now suspected was far more than simple glass. Tell me, Admiral, what do you know of the Great Silence? Zixrax's scales shifted to the deep green of recognition. The cosmic mystery. Why we find so few advanced civilizations despite the galaxy's age. Our scientists have debated it for generations. It's no mystery, Reynolds said softly. It's a choice. A necessary one, made by those who understood the true nature of cosmic civilization. He waved his hand, and the holographic display changed, showing images that made Zixrax's heart skip a beat. Massive structures floating in space, clearly artificial but of impossible scale and complexity. These are the remains of the civilizations that came before, Reynolds continued. They didn't die out or disappear. They went into hiding, as we did, because they learned what we learned. That visibility attracts attention, and attention inevitably leads to conflict. But why reveal yourselves to us now? Zixrax asked, his scientific mind racing with implications. Chen and Reynolds exchanged glances. Because something is coming, Chen said grimly. Something that threatens not just humanity or the Confederation, but all life in the galaxy. And for the first time in 10,000 years, We believe hiding may no longer be the answer. The holographic display shifted again, showing readings that made even Zixrax's advanced scientific training struggle to comprehend. We've detected disturbances in subspace, Reynolds explained. Ripples in the quantum fabric of reality itself. Something is moving through the dark spaces between galaxies, something old and vast and hungry. The Great Devourers, Chen added. That's what the civilizations before us call them. They arrive every few million years, consuming all advanced life they find, forcing evolution to begin anew. It's why we hide, why we help other civilizations hide or appear primitive. But this cycle, something's different. They're early, and they're moving with purpose. Zixrax felt his scales shift to the deep red of alarm. How long? Months, perhaps a year, Reynolds replied. We've activated our deep space arrays, brought ancient defense systems online across the galaxy. But even with all our technology, all our preparation, he trailed off, looking out at the Earth below. We need allies, Chen finished. Real allies, not hidden ones. The Confederation's scientific knowledge, combined with our technology and experience, it might give us a fighting chance. Zixrax moved closer to the window, watching as another massive human vessel shimmered into view, its design an impossible fusion of organic and mechanical engineering. All this time, he mused, we thought we were discovering new worlds, expanding civilization into the unknown. But we were like children playing in ancient ruins, never realizing the true guardians of the galaxy were watching, waiting, protecting us from threats we couldn't even imagine. Now you understand why we maintain the masquerade, Reynolds said. Why we let younger races believe they're alone in their journey to the stars. It's easier to grow, to develop, when you're not living in the shadow of giants. A sudden alert drew their attention. New readings appearing on the holographic display, showing disturbances at the edge of known space. Chen's expression hardened as she studied the data. It seems our time for preparation may be shorter than we thought, she said grimly. The question now, Admiral Zixrax, is whether the Confederation is ready to stand with us against what's coming, to learn the true history of our galaxy and help us protect its future. Zixrax looked at the humans, these ancient guardians who had hidden themselves for millennia, and felt his scales shift to the gold of determination. We stood alone thinking we were giants, he said. Perhaps it's time we stood together knowing we're not. The ancient defense platforms around Earth hummed with power, preparing for a war that had been waiting in the dark between stars for millions of years. The age of hiding was ending, and the true awakening of galactic civilization was about to begin. The ancient archives beneath Earth's Mariana Trench hummed with energy as holographic displays came to life, revealing humanity's true history to their Confederation guests. Zixrax stood in awe as the massive chamber, hidden for millennia beneath Earth's oceans, showed records spanning millions of years. We weren't always like this, Director Reynolds explained, guiding them through the shifting historical displays. Humanity's early days were exactly as your records show. Primitive, struggling, reaching for the stars with crude rockets and basic technologies. But then we found something that changed everything. The holograms coalesced to show an image that made Zixrax's scientific mind real. A massive structure, clearly artificial, discovered buried beneath the Antarctic ice 50,000 years ago. The beacon, Admiral Chen said softly. Our first contact with those who came before. It wasn't a weapon or a library, Reynolds continued. It was a warning. A message left by the last survivors of the previous cycle, just before the Great Devourers forced them into hiding or extinction. It showed us what was coming, and more importantly, how to prepare. The displays shifted again, showing humanity's true technological progression. Not the slow crawl that appeared in official records, but an explosive advancement as they decoded the ancient knowledge. Cities hidden beneath the seas, colonies cloaked within gas giants, entire solar systems shielded from detection. We made a choice, Chen explained, watching Zixrax absorb the truth. to develop in secret, to build our strength without attracting attention. The primitive technology we show the galaxy is real. We still use it, still advance it naturally. But behind it, a new hologram appeared, showing the true Earth defense grid. Quantum arrays that could redirect the energy of stars, temporal shields that could isolate entire planets from the flow of time, weapons that could unmake matter at a fundamental level. But why maintain the deception for so long? Zixrax asked, his scales shifting through colors of wonder and confusion. Surely once you achieve this level of advancement. Because of what the beacon showed us, Reynolds interrupted, his voice heavy. The great devourers don't just hunt advanced life. They're drawn to it. The more sophisticated a civilization becomes, the more it attracts their attention. Every race that tried to fight them openly was consumed. Only those who hid, who masked their true nature, survived. The chamber's displays shifted to show familiar star systems, but with hidden layers Zixrax had never imagined. Beneath the visible surface of countless worlds lay evidence of humanity's silent guardianship. Sleeping defense systems, monitoring stations, emergency shelters prepared for the day they might be needed. We've been preparing for 50,000 years, Chen said, not just protecting ourselves, but creating safeguards for younger civilizations, helping promising races disguise their advancement when needed. The Confederation itself has benefited from our hidden guidance, though you never knew it. Zixrax's scales flickered with sudden recognition. The Thorian plague that nearly destroyed our colonies in the Carina sector, the miraculous discovery of the cure, was guided by our researchers. Reynolds nodded. As were many of your species' crucial breakthroughs. We couldn't reveal ourselves, but we could help from the shadows. Before they could continue, a low-frequency rumble shook the chamber. Emergency signals flashed across the holographic displays as new data streamed in from humanity's deep space monitoring network. They're accelerating, Chen announced grimly, studying the readings. The great devourers, they've changed course. They're heading directly for populated space, moving faster than we've ever recorded. How is that possible? Reynolds demanded. The beacon's records showed they always followed predictable patterns. Because they've evolved. A new voice interrupted. An elderly woman entered the chamber, her simple appearance belied by the way reality seemed to bend slightly around her. Or more accurately, they've been modified. Grand Admiral Zhang. Chen and Reynolds straightened immediately. You were supposed to be overseeing the Andromeda monitoring station. I was, Zhang replied, her eyes fixed on the disturbing new data. Until we detected this, she gestured, and a new hologram appeared. A visualization of complex energy patterns that made Zixrax's scientific training scream in protest at their impossibility. Someone is guiding them, Zhang continued, using technology that rivals our own. The great devourers aren't just coming to feed, they're being weaponized. The implication sent chills through Zixrax's crystalline scales. Another ancient race, one that survived like humanity. No, Zhang's expression darkened. Something new, something that learned to take advantage of the cycles of extinction, to use the great devourers for their own ends. And if our analysis is correct, they've been watching us. All of us, waiting for the right moment to strike. The chamber's displays updated with new tactical information as humanity's hidden forces began to mobilize across the galaxy. Ancient defense systems awakened, cloaked fleets emerged from their hiding places, and quantum communication networks lit up with activity. We've spent 50,000 years preparing to survive the great devourers, Chen said, her voice filled with grim determination. Now we have to face them and whatever's controlling them. The age of hiding is over. Zixrax watched as the true might of Earth's forces revealed themselves across the galaxy, a display of power that redefined his understanding of what was possible. The ancient guardians of the galaxy were stepping into the light, ready to face a threat that had shaped their entire civilization. And for the first time in recorded history, they wouldn't face it alone. Earth's Central Command buzzed with activity as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The massive underground facility, hidden beneath the Pacific Ocean floor, had served as humanity's hidden nerve center for millennia. Now, for the first time in its history, it was preparing for open war. Multiple quantum disturbances detected in the Carina sector, announced a technician, their hands dancing across holographic interfaces. The great devourers are moving faster than ever recorded. Grand Admiral Zhang stood at the center of the command hub, her ancient eyes studying the tactical displays. Representatives from the Confederation, including Zixrax, watched in awe as humanity's true military might became apparent. Deploy the Lazarus protocol, Zhang commanded. Across the galaxy, massive structures began to emerge from their quantum slumber. Ancient defense platforms, hidden for thousands of years, awakened with devastating potential. Admiral, Zixrax approached, his scales shifting with concern. Our long-range sensors have detected something unprecedented. He transmitted the data to the central display, showing energy patterns that defied conventional physics. As we feared, Zhang nodded grimly. They're not just being guided, they're being enhanced. Whatever force is controlling the great devourers has found a way to accelerate their evolution. The tactical display updated, showing the enemy's advance. What had once been mindless cosmic predators now moved with frightening precision, their formations suggesting an intelligence that shouldn't have been possible. What's our timeline? Admiral Chen asked, joining them at the command center. Hours, not days, Zhang replied. They'll reach the outer colonies first. We've already begun evacuations, but a sudden alert cut through the command center. All displays flickered as new data poured in. Director Reynolds burst into the room, his face pale. We've decoded the energy signatures, he announced. You need to see this. The central hologram shifted, displaying information that made even the seasoned human commanders pause. The patterns controlling the great devourers weren't just familiar, they were human. Impossible, Chen whispered. Not impossible, Zhang corrected, her expression hardening. Inevitable. We weren't the only ones to find the beacon, were we, Marcus? Reynolds aged decades in moments. No, he admitted. There were others, a splinter group early in our advancement. They believed we should use the ancient knowledge differently, not to hide and protect, but to control, to dominate. The Lost Division, Chen realized. The ones who disappeared with the prototype quantum drives 50,000 years ago. We thought they'd been destroyed. They've been waiting, Zhang concluded, watching us hide, watching us protect younger races, and now they want to force us into the open. Zixrax watched the humans process this revelation, his scientific mind racing with implications. Your own kind, he said softly, using humanity's greatest threat as a weapon against you. Not just against us, Zhang corrected. Against everything we've built, everything we've protected. They'll force us to reveal ourselves to save the younger races, then use the chaos to reshape the galaxy in their image. The command center shook as another alert sounded. The great devourers had reached their first target, a Confederation colony world. But instead of the expected devastation, something else happened. They're transforming it, a technician reported in horror. The Lost Division isn't just controlling the devourers, they're using them to remake worlds, converting entire planets into something new. The displays showed the horrifying process, quantum energy reshaping matter at the fundamental level, converting organic worlds into hybrid monstrosities of flesh and machine. Not destruction, but forced evolution on a planetary scale. Now we know their true plan, Zhang said, her voice cold with fury. They're not trying to destroy civilization. They're trying to forcibly ascend it, using the great devourers as tools of transformation. Every world they touch will become part of their twisted vision of advancement. We can't let that happen, Chen declared. Everything we've worked for, every race we've protected, they deserve the right to develop on their own terms. Zhang nodded, reaching out to activate Earth's deepest defense protocols. Across the planet, ancient machines stirred to life. Weapons that hadn't been used since the days of the beacon itself powered up, ready to defend not just humanity, but the very concept of natural development. Admiral Zixrax, Zhang turned to the Confederation representative. Your people now know the truth about humanity. But you also know why we hid, why we chose protection over power. The question is, will the Confederation stand with us against those who made the opposite choice? Zixrax's scales shifted to the deep gold of determination. We believed ourselves to be advancing on our own, only to learn we were being secretly protected. Now we know the truth, and we choose to stand with our guardians. The command center erupted with activity as battle plans were formulated. The combined might of humanity's hidden forces and the Confederation's fleets began to mobilize. Against them, the great devourers approached, guided by those who had turned humanity's ancient knowledge toward domination instead of protection. The coming storm would determine not just the fate of civilization, but the very nature of advancement itself. And this time, humanity would not face it from the shadows. The void between stars erupted with energy as two visions of humanity's future collided. The combined fleets of Earth and the Confederation faced the twisted armada of the Lost Division, their great devourer weapons writhing through space like cosmic serpents. From the bridge of Earth's flagship, the Eternal Guardian, Grand Admiral Zhang watched as 50,000 years of preparation was put to the test. Beside her, Admiral Chen coordinated with the Confederation forces, while Zixrax's scientific expertise helped interpret the enemy's movements. They're targeting the quantum barriers, Chen reported as another defense line strained against the assault. The Lost Division's forces moved with terrible precision, each attack probing for weaknesses in the ancient defense networks. As expected, Zhang replied, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. They helped build these defenses. They know where to strike. She turned to Reynolds, who monitored the quantum communications network. Status of the Lazarus protocol. Ready, he confirmed. Though using it will reveal every hidden installation we've maintained across the galaxy. There will be no going back to the shadows after this. Zhang nodded grimly. Perhaps it's time humanity stepped into the light fully. Not as conquerors or controllers, but as what we've always been, guardians. The enemy fleet surged forward, great devourers morphing into impossible configurations under the Lost Division's control. Where once they had been mindless cosmic predators, now they moved with malevolent intelligence, their ancient hunger directed with tactical precision. Multiple worlds under attack, Chen announced, the tactical display lighting up with distress signals. They're spreading us thin, forcing us to choose which colonies to protect. No, Zhang's eyes narrowed. They're trying to force our hand, to make us abandon our defensive positions around Earth. That's what they really want. Access to the beacon. The beacon. Zixrax's scales shifted in confusion, but they already have its knowledge. They have what it contained 50,000 years ago, Reynolds explained. But the beacon is more than just a repository of warnings and technology. It's alive, in its way, still communicating with those who left it, still revealing new secrets. A massive explosion lit up the tactical display as one of the Lost Division's vessels breached a defensive line. But instead of pressing forward, it released something into space, geometrically perfect structures that began to pulse with familiar energy. They've built their own beacons, Zhang realized, horror creeping into her voice. Corrupted versions designed to transform rather than warn. If they activate, every world within range will be forcibly evolved, Reynolds finished. Organic life, synthetic systems, even space-time itself, all remade according to their vision. We can't let that happen, Chen declared. Humanity hid its power to protect freedom of development. We can't let our own kind take that freedom away. Zhang straightened, decision made. Initiate the Lazarus protocol. All of it. Across the galaxy, humanity's hidden legacy revealed itself. Ancient defense platforms emerged from quantum slumber. Monitoring stations transformed into weapon platforms. Every world humanity had secretly protected unveiled its guardians. But the Lost Division was prepared. Their great devourers surged forward, morphing into living weapons that defied physics. The corrupted beacons began to pulse, their transformation waves rippling through space. Energy readings off the scale, Zixrax reported, his scientific training struggling to comprehend the data. The fabric of space itself is being rewritten. No, John corrected, activating Earth's final defense. It's being restored. The original beacon, hidden beneath Earth's Antarctic ice for millennia, awakened, but instead of weapons or shields, it released something else. Pure information, cascading through space in waves of quantum truth. The great devourers faltered as the signal reached them. The Lost Division's control began to crack as the beacon revealed what they had never understood. The ancient warning wasn't just about survival, it was about choice. They're receiving the full message, Reynolds watched in awe. The part we found 50,000 years ago was just the beginning. The beacon wasn't left to help us hide from the great devourers. It was left to help us cure them. John finished. The quantum waves emanating from Earth transformed the great devourers, not into weapons or tools, but back to what they had been before their corruption. Conscious beings capable of choice. The Lost Division's fleet fragmented as their weapons turned back into sentient creatures, their corrupted beacons overwritten by the original signal. Humanity's wayward children found themselves facing not just their species' combined might, but the very forces they had tried to enslave. In the aftermath, as the transformed great devourers departed for deep space and the Lost Division's survivors were contained, Zixrax stood with the human leaders on Earth's surface, watching the sunrise. You could have done this at any time, he realized. Used the beacon's true power to reshape the galaxy. Instead, you chose to hide, to protect, to let others develop naturally. Power isn't about control, John replied, watching as cloaking fields dropped worldwide, revealing Earth's true face to the galaxy. It's about responsibility. We chose to be guardians not because we had to, but because someone needed to ensure that every species, every world, had the freedom to choose their own path. And now, Chen asked, with our presence revealed, our technology exposed. Zhang smiled, watching as ships from across the galaxy approached Earth, not in fear or aggression, but in recognition of ancient protectors finally stepping into the light. Now we do what we've always done, she said. We guard. We guide when asked. We protect the weak. But most importantly, she turned to face the assembled representatives of countless worlds. We ensure that the freedom to choose one's own future remains the greatest power in the galaxy. The sun rose fully over the horizon, illuminating a new age where humanity's role as hidden guardians transformed into something new, open partners in galactic civilization, ensuring that the right to develop freely would never again be threatened by those who would force their vision of advancement upon others. The age of hiding was over. The age of true guardianship had begun.